Hi, everybody. This is Jean again. And this month, you're going to get to see some quilts that I've decided to part with. I've been doing this quilting thing for 49 years. So you can imagine I have a lot of quilts, and I've also written 50 books. And each time you do a book, you need to have samples in different colors and things. And so a lot of these have come from books. And I'm going to now kind of give you a little story on each one of them. And they are for sale, and I'm hoping they all find nice homes this month. This first one is entitled Willow Wood, and that's also the title of a book that I did a few years later. I've always been fascinated by willows, and I love to see them in the springtime when they first start budding out, and you have all of those fun spring colors that make you think of warm days. And these are little 9 patches set on point. It's a very scrappy quilt. And then the vines were hand appliqued in place as well as the letters. And the next piece is called Peaceful Village. And it was a block of the month design that I created many, many, many years ago. And all those fabrics happen to be fabrics that Valori designed in the early years when she became one of the very first freelance designers to be able to get her name on the selvage. And that was really a big deal. Um, it's a very upbeat sort of palette, but I was really pushing myself to be able to use all of these different colors. But I feel like the greens in there kind of unite everything that's going on. And of course, I love all the florals. So they got put in the windows. There's floral on a tree, a floral on a house. So it's really a fun piece. And it is $400, and it's 62 by 72. And I forgot to tell you how big Willowwood is. It's 36 by 47, and it's 325. Now, the next piece was a quilt that we put in Patchwork Quilts Made Easy. This was a big book, over 100 pages, and I covered a lot of different things that have to do with patchwork. And I wanted a project in the book that beginners could do. And so this was what I chose. And I made a lot of these in my day because I taught classes on it too. It's 37 by 37, and it's 250. And I especially like in this one how that yellow gold just made it glow. And when you have that kind of contrast in a quilt, then you can work with a lot of darks because the light, plays so well with those really rich darks. And this next piece has a special place in my heart, but I don't have any place to put it. And so I thought, okay, maybe somebody will really like this. I made it when we were getting ready to move from the family home, which we'd been in for 28 years, into Sisters, and we had custom built a smaller house for ourselves. And as I cleaned out the studio, when I got to all of these fabrics, I thought, I am cutting a strip of each one of them. And so I did and tossed them all in a pile. And I was determined then to try to make something with that many different colors. And I really love looking at the different rows because I tried to have each row have some sort of a little theme. And, there's true red in there, and then there's magenta and raspberry in the next row. So there's a bit of everything in here. And I feel like the aqua blue row, those narrower ones really made everybody else sing. And I used a cutting technique where you don't use rulers. And so you really get that meandering feeling from this piece. And it's called Color Play. It's 39 by 60, and it's $395. Okay, here we are looking at a willow quilt I made just a couple years ago. This is winter willows. Um, there's something about willows in springtime, and you go on a spring kind of cold, early spring day, and the willows are so cheery and they're all turning color. And I love that color of green and the bits of orange and kind of magenta. So this quilt, I made three of them because I got so into it. And I thought, well, I can part with one of them. But on this one, on the background, I collaged indigo fabrics. And I love the contrast of the indigo blues with these intense colors in the greens and oranges and pinks. And it happens to be 28 by 46, and it's 325. The Harvest is a quilt that I am so proud of, and I wish I still had a big kitchen where I could have hung it because I love this piece. Ruth McDowell had come out with a book on how to um, piece the imagery, and I just studied that book and came up with this design and decided to just do veggies. So this is my vision of harvest time. And I really enjoy the variety of brown prints that I put in the background. I think their contrast with these more intense colors really seems to work. And this one is 50 by 72 and a half, and it's 295. And I hope somebody has a kind of farmhouse sort of kitchen. This would love to go to your house. And this next one is called zinnias. And zinnias happen to be one of my favorite flowers, and I like to start them from seed. And there's just something so lasting from them. They're not the type of flowers that within a week they're wilted and they're done. They really last for a long time. And I tried to capture the variety of colors in this. And it was for a book, Portraits from Nature, that was done many years ago. And it was when fusing had first come out. So these are fused in place. And then I did machine applique around the petals and around the center. And I did add some beads in the centers. And I thought that worked pretty well too. This is 36 by 36, and it's 225. And this was early machine quilting for me. So I was very proud of what I did on that kind of tan background, the portrait finish that these are mounted on. And this next little piece was really a long time ago. I would say probably, 40 years. And I was really admiring scrap quilts. And I thought, well, I want to try to do something that's just a lot of scraps and not so planned where everything's going to go. So I took and cut all of these 2-inch squares and tossed them in a paper bag. And as I pulled them out of the bag, I just made one row after the next. And I did not let myself move anything around. And what it taught me was that whatever you choose to put in that bag, if you have good contrast in terms of your lights and darks and dulls and brights, it isn't going to matter what's next to what, because what you see is the whole once it's put together. So this was kind of a milestone concept for me to learn at that point in my life when I was just learning lots about quilting. And I call it postage stamp playtime. It's 21 by 23 and a half, and it's 125. Okay, this butterfly quilt is called Butterfly Garden, and it was in the same book, the Portraits from Nature. And I just had a lot of fun trying to figure out how I could put several shapes together into one piece and have it be cohesive. And I can remember the last thing I did was made those two little circle pieces that sat up above uh, the purple flower, and it just seemed to kind of work. I was trying to just put one of them, and one of them didn't work. And I'm a firm believer of auditioning things and really making sure that you're going to like them before you completely sew it up. And this is another one where it was my early machine quilting. And I always have felt that I'm not very good at drawing, but yet there's something about the sewing machine that we have gotten along since I was 9 years old. And so being able to do this drawing with the sewing machine was easy for me, and I'm still doing it. The piece that's right below is kind of a departure from this technique in that it is hand applique, and it's called Springtime. It's 20 and a half by 32, and it's 150. And I had just learned how to cut without using rulers. So you can see how the background behind the poppies um, has kind of uh, undulating line work. And I felt like I was being a painter when I did this little landscape back there. And then I felt it really needed something to ground those poppies. So I created kind of a mossy green lawn like effect with those strips. And you can see I've done a little bit of hand quilting and actually quite a bit of hand quilting. In fact, it's all hand quilted. So there you go. Okay, cottage garden came from my Everything Flowers book. And I've always liked this block, this cottage block, the simplicity of it. And I thought how fun it would be to pull apart the sections and um, fuse them down. And then I did buttonhole stitch applique around the edge of each of those pieces. And I can remember having a pile of these in my sewing basket for quite a while till I finally finished doing all of them. And I did change up the color of thread to match, each of the blocks. But today, when we were hanging the show, I had forgotten about that cute little bunny fabric. But it just brings back memories when you look at some of these things, that I made years ago. And this last quilt is a real special one. Um, I know a lot of you know who Gwen Marsden was, and she was a dear friend of mine. And one summer she was here for Quilt Show, and she stayed at the house with me, and she was just loving Val's new fabrics. And these are all Val fabrics in this quilt. She said, just give me some, Jean. I'm going to make something. So she ended up making this, and it's called Chinese Coins and 16 Patches. It's 60 by 70, and it's 450. And I think it's just a fun, fun piece, and certainly celebrates the florals that Val is so good at creating. And she loves the garden too, you can tell by this. And there's quite a few zinnias in here. So we also share that interest too. And the little 16 patches I think are very fun. Um, that again, you cut 1.5 inch squares, toss them all in a bag, and start sewing rows of 4 together. And then you can do a little designing with those rows of 4, and pretty soon you've got a lot of blocks. But I find it really fun to do scrappy pieces because I can use up some things that were precious to me that maybe don't have a lot of friends anymore, and they still look good together when you have a lot of them. And I think that's the key is, one or two wouldn't have been very good, but a whole bunch of them are great. So I hope you enjoy these, and maybe there's something that will catch your eye, but um, it feels really good for me to see them all hung and not folded up in the loft. So thank you.